Kyle Blair here with K-Bar Fitness, and this is video log number 2, or as some people have called it, vlog, but I don't really like that word, so I'm not going to call it that. I'm just going to call it a video log. Alright, so I'm going to talk about periodization. Alright, so what is periodization? Periodization is the fundamental concept of exercise progression, alright? It's very useful in sports and athletes. It actually has more of a purpose for those individuals. But for my audience, or you guys, I'm going to keep it more general fitness, okay? So I started implementing this once I learned about it about a year and a half ago. And my workouts and strength have gone whoosh, and I have rarely plateaued, okay? So you know when someone's like, you can't do the same reps and sets and exercises for too long or you won't get better or stronger, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, well that is actually true. And that is the point of periodization. Alright, so before we talk about periodization, you need to know that you need to log things. That's sets, reps, weights, exercises, and how you feel. How you feel, you're like, why do I gotta write that? Well, listen, if you write that you did a certain weight a certain amount of times, but you note that you were not feeling great that day, then you can, when you look back on it, you know that that might not be a true indicator of how strong you are because you weren't feeling that day. So you can discard it or just don't use it to determine what you should be lifting on this particular day. Alright, so there are two terms I would like you to know for periodization, and that would be intensity and volume, okay? Intensity and volume are inverse of each other. So when one is high, the other is low. Think of it as a seesaw. Intensity and volume, okay? So, first I'm going to define intensity. So, there's a 1 rep max, which is the amount of weight that you can do one time, okay? So let's say you're benching 100 pounds, right? So 70% intensity of that weight would be 70 pounds. Simple enough, right? Yeah, so say at the gym and you're not doing exactly 100 pounds and you want to know what intensity is. Just take the weight you're doing, say 315, and multiply it by the percentage. So basically, if you want to do 20%, just do 0.2. 70%, 0.7. Easy? Cool. Alright, so the second term would be volume. And that would be the amount of the volume, the volume would be the sets, the reps, and the weight that you're using. So let's say you're doing a 135 pound back squat for 2 sets of 10 reps, alright? That would give you 2,700 pounds of volume. 2,700 pounds, I like this volume stuff. That makes me sound really strong. Well, if it makes you feel strong, I'm glad you like it. Use it. Okay, so periodization uses, let's think of it as an upside down pyramid, okay? And that would be high volume, so a lot of exercises, so quantity, okay? And as time goes on, you get more to quality. Okay, so what do I mean by this? Okay, so let's think. There is something called a mesocycle. Okay, so let's say a mesocycle is 12 weeks of training, right? 12 weeks. In those 12 weeks, there are going to be 3 blocks, all right? And those are called microcycles. Meso is big, micro is smaller, okay? Now, each microcycle, the volume is going to get lower and the intensity is going to get higher. Now I said they're inverse seesaw. That's a concept that if you grasp, it makes it a lot easier. All right. So the first blocks, let's say, would be the endurance phase. Okay, for general public. So endurance would be 15 to 20 reps. All right. So you start out with endurance, and that would be a lot of volume. You're moving quick. The rest periods are short. You're doing a lot of reps. You know, you want to hit the specific muscles, like you want to hit your upper chest and then your lower chest and this part of your tricep and then this part of your tricep. So you want to be specific around these times, okay? But you want to keep the weight not too heavy. So you definitely don't want to push it as far as load, okay? So you do that for, let's say, 3 weeks, all right? And the intensity of that should be about 65 to 70%. So 100 pounds, you should be doing 60 pounds. And you could probably do that. I would actually go down to about 50 to 60% for an endurance phase because you got to do 15 to 20 reps. So if you can bench 100, you want to play around with about 50 to 60 pounds for the reps, okay? All right, so you're going to do that for 3 weeks, all right? And on the 4th week of a microcycle, or one of those 3 blocks in the mesocycle, is called an unload or a deload, okay? So what is that? Well, a deload or an unload, I'm going to call it a deload because that's what I like to call it, is an active recovery phase to where you can still lift, but you're giving your ligaments and your muscles and your central nervous, believe it or not, your mind fatigues as well. You're giving all of those a rest so that for the next block, so block 2 of the 3, you have plenty of energy for the higher intensity and lower volume, alright? So it's only a week. I don't like to get real specific when I do this. I just, I'll lift a little bit later than I would normally do. I try not to go to failure too much, it happens. And, you kind of just take it a little easier. Okay, so let's move on to microcycle number 2 of the 12 weeks, okay? So for this, we'll still stay in the hypertrophy range, so we'll do 8 to 12 reps, so let's say 70 to maybe 80% of your 1 rep max, or 70 to 80% intensity. And you want the volume to come down a little bit lower, so maybe you want to do a little less reps, okay? Now, as far as specificity, yeah, you like that word? Like hitting upper and lower chest and triceps and blah blah, you can still keep that. So yeah, you don't have to, throw those out yet. And you want to do those for 3 weeks, okay? And then at the end of that, week 4, you would do another deload, okay? And then the last block would be more of a strength phase where you want to do 4 to 6 reps. Go real heavy, high intensity, like 80, 90%. And then lower volume, so like 2 to 3 sets of 4 to 6 reps. Now, this phase, you want to be more specific. So instead of trying to hit individual little parts of the muscle, you want to keep big compound movements like benching, squatting, barbell shoulder press, those compound movements that hit the entire muscle group, if not multiple muscle groups at once. All right? So what I just described to you is linear periodization. So it starts at pyramid and it gets down. It goes from quantity to quality. It goes from specific to non-specific, okay? And you will get stronger from that, I promise. And if you track it, what I like to do is I like to look at the first 12 weeks and make sure that I'm improving on the next 12 weeks. So those are really what you should be comparing the most, and not necessarily the 4-week blocks, okay? Now, there's nonlinear periodization, okay? And that would be kind of playing around with it, giving your body even more confusion, so it'll grow more. The way I have experimented with it, I've tried it 2 different ways. The first way would be every single week you change the reps. So say you're doing, let's go back to the 12-week, 3-block, 4-week meso microcycle. So week 1, you would be doing high reps. Week 2, lower the reps a little bit, raise the intensity. Week 3, even more intensity, even less volume, deload, repeat. Okay? Simple enough, right? And then you would do that for the 12 weeks. And I found that was actually more beneficial for strength gains and everything when I tried that one. So I like that one. However, I felt like my body wasn't quite adapting to the endurance part of it or the strength part of it as much as I would like. So I tried a 2-week version of that. So I made 6 weeks and then a deload. Now note, this is pretty advanced, so if you're not that good at lifting and you don't have good recovery and you don't really know what you're doing, do not try this. If you're an experienced lifter and you want to try something that'll blow those gains out of the water, give it a try. So back to it. I would do 2 weeks of hypertrophy, and I felt like this was sufficient for me to get, or endurance. I felt like this was sufficient for my muscles to be able to gain endurance in this process. And then I would go lower to hypertrophy, so some muscle building, and then strength ultimately to, get stronger. And then I would deload, and I would do this for, 16 weeks or something like that, if you include all the deloads and repeat. So why do people use periodization? Well, 1, it's a way to never plateau, theoretically, right? Well, yes, you're going to plateau because you can't just keep doing it and doing it and doing it, and then one day you're benching 6,000 pounds. No, but the plateauing definitely decreases, okay? Also, it helps you with fatigue, okay? And fatigue, you're like, well, I don't really get tired. Okay, well, have you ever got injured? That's because that's a result of fatigue. Your ligaments get tired, things happen, okay? So periodization is another way to kind of pull that fatigue out. So uh, by not always going heavy or always going, tons of volume, doing tons of sets, you're giving your body what it needs when it needs it, okay? So give this a try. Log it all. Do it. Hopefully it works for you. And that is the very, very basic, in a nutshell, version of periodization. And like I said, if you want to know more about sports periodization with on-season, off-season, peaks, competition phases, blah, 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 that kind of stuff, contact me and I'll be more than happy to discuss that with you as well. So I really hope this was helpful for you guys, and join me next week for the next video log.